Gold has been ready to shine for quite some time, but there's more to gold than just being sublime. It's sending a message and it's big and strong. And we're going to talk about it because it won't be long. Let's explore. There's a big warning signal that is being shot across the bow, a message that gold is sending. And I'll be referencing a piece here from Ian Salisbury. And I want to also insert what I think here as well, too, because there's more to gold than just meets the eye into what's going on here. It's sending a larger signal that is actually potentially bad news for the economy, and we're seeing that play out more and more as the events break out across the world. We've seen gold dramatically outshining other metals, but it may be bad news for the economy. It's no secret that gold, traditionally a safe haven asset, has been on a tear, with prices up about 40% over the past 12 months, thanks to buying by central banks and a chaotic U.S. political scene. And we saw gold trade recently here over $3,300 an ounce. And it's down a little bit today. In fact, today is the typical Friday smackdown. But the fact that there is uncertainty around the world means that silver is acting more as a industrial metal, and it's down over 1% today. But whenever there's a dip like this in both metals, well, that's an opportunity for us, if our budget allows, to buy more. And that's where Summit Metals comes in, one of the fastest growing bullion dealers out there, with great customer service and a widening selection as well. So check them out at summitmetals.com. But gold certainly is a metal that has stood the test of time and shall continue to do so. There's no question about that, really, no matter what happens. But I think in this case here, there is a bigger message that's being sent about what could be coming down the road with the economy, not just in the United States, but around the world. Because it's been a different story for industrial metals like copper, aluminum, and zinc. Their price, driven by prospects for global economic growth, are down 10% on average for the past 12 months. But silver has actually been up, all things withstanding, aside from its big pullback today. That divergence in price is ominous, according to Mike McGlone, a senior commodity strategist at Bloomberg Intelligence. The highest ever gold price versus the Bloomberg Industrial Metals Spot Sub-Index at the end of May, based on our database going back to 1991, is not a good sign for the global economy. So I'm not just talking about the United States here. We're talking about the entire world could be at risk here of a global economic downturn. Some places are already feeling it, by the way. There are some caveats, according to McGlone. U.S. stock prices remain high, and yields on Treasury bonds have been rising recently, not falling, as one would expect if nervous investors were dumping risky assets and buying the debt in a flight to safety. Of course, rising bond yields are also a concern for other reasons. We won't get into that, though. What is more, gold prices have been climbing steadily for several years, thanks to worries about inflation and buying by foreign central banks, which have been gradually diversifying their reserve assets away from the U.S. dollar. That's known as de-dollarization. That's right, this thing here, which has lost value tremendously over the past couple of years as well, at the height of inflation, when the most conservative estimates were at 9% year-over-year inflation. De-dollarization is a real thing, and that's something that's continuing to this very day. U.S. retail investors have been getting into the action as well. In fact, we've seen Costco selling gold bars like crazy as soon as they hit the shelves. We've talked about that on this channel as well. And Walmart is another place where bullion dealers are operating through. By this reckoning, gold's price surge relative to more economically sensitive metals isn't necessarily a flashing red light for the economy. Instead, it merely suggests that gold is in a bubble. And according to some, that is certainly the view of plenty on Wall Street. Last month, the Bank of America Securities Survey of global fund managers found 49% named gold the market's most crowded trade, The Magnificent Seven had held that honor for the previous 2 years. Of course, Bank of America also said that they think that gold is going to rise to $4,000 an ounce this year. So if it's a bubble, well, the bubble has not stretched out to its furthest extent yet, and it certainly doesn't look like it's going to pop anytime soon either. Still, writing off gold's price move simply because the metal is making headlines and investors are piling on could be a mistake. After all, while gold prices are hovering near record highs, so is the S&P 500, with the price-to-earnings ratio higher than at any time since the late 1990s. Wow. So that's something else. If U.S. stock prices were to tumble, perhaps in response to a slowing U.S. economic growth or political turmoil, it could easily trigger a global sell-off. This could see investors fleeing risky assets, including not just stocks, but Bitcoin and economically sensitive metals like copper. Speaking of Bitcoin, it recently got to $110,000 a Bitcoin. And so, there is that kind of thing happening as well, too, which is quite intriguing to see that occur. Makes you wonder what's going on behind the scenes there, what's propping it up. I think a lot of it is based off the Bitcoin conference and what the United States wants to do to be a leader with Bitcoin around the world. But you know what? I think there should be more talk about gold, honestly, than Bitcoin. That's just my view. But yes, fascinating. And so we'll see. Now, at least some of the money flooding out of these volatile assets will likely find shelter in gold, driving prices to yet new highs. There is solid support for gold, no question about that, because it has been stored by central banks. And even at the time, in the early 2000s, when central banks were selling off gold, we know about Brown's bottom, and then in 2016, Canada got rid of all their gold. I think it just bodes well for the metal in the long course of time that there is some stability there with central banks holding it. And holding it, not selling it, as many central banks like the United States did not do during that time, and others as well, and continuing to accumulate it. And I think that's the bigger message here, folks. If you want to really solidify your position with gold, buy it and hold it. It's about holding on. And I know it's very tempting if you bought gold at $300 an ounce, right? Back in the, in the day, in the early 2000s, and you want to sell it for, that big of a profit with over $3,000. Certainly understandable, but think about it. What is gold? Where is its power? Its power is in holding it, to have the storage of wealth outside of the system. You are empowered by having the metal in your hands, of all different types. There's a lot of variety that you see here in front of your screen, including this latest Malta piece, which, even though this is not a rare coin, is very hard to come by. It was only available for just a little brief while before they went out of stock. I can't find it anywhere now. But nonetheless, there is various different kinds of bullion to get. This is mostly collector pieces. But, it's holding on the gold. There's something that is empowering about having that. And so flooding out of these volatile assets, knowing that people go to gold in times of uncertainty. But you know what? I think buying gold in times when people aren't talking about it is really a very powerful thing too. Because when the prices go up, well, you're definitely empowered, no question about it. Unprecedented U.S. tariffs are coming with the stock market historically elevated, which may test the inordinate burden on the S&P 500 to remain elevated to buoy all boats, according to what he wrote there. But still, no matter what happens with the S&P 500 or tariffs, gold is going to stand the test of time, no question about that. And so that is the message I want to send to you now with this, because it may be sending a big signal, a big warning signal as to dire economic situation globally. But nonetheless, the more gold you have in your portfolio, the better off you're going to be. But even if you have just a little bit, you're doing much better than most people out there. So I'd encourage you to buy and hold and hang on to your gold. So let me know what your thoughts are about this story down in the comment section below. I strive to give you the latest news in the world of precious metals. Check out this video I did about a major crime I don't know if it was a crime or not. They're serving time in a maximum security prison and for carrying some silver coins. Check that video out right here. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.